The impact of the US tariff war on India. A boon or a bane? The US-China trade war, which escalated under the Trump administration and continued with varying intensity under Biden, has had widespread effects on global trade dynamics. While this tariff war primarily targeted China, it has had ripple effects on many countries, including India. The question arises, has India benefited from this economic conflict, or has it faced unintended negative consequences? This article explores the economic, geopolitical, and strategic implications of the US tariff war for India. Understanding the US-China trade war. The trade war began in 2018 when the US imposed tariffs on Chinese goods worth billions of dollars, citing unfair trade practices, intellectual property theft, and an imbalanced trade relationship. In retaliation, China imposed its own tariffs on American goods. This tit-for-tat escalation led to trade diversions, shifts in global supply chains, and opportunities for third-party nations like India. How India benefits from the tariff war. 1. Trade diversion and increased exports. The trade war created a vacuum in global trade, particularly for goods that were heavily taxed due to US tariffs on Chinese products. Many companies sought alternative suppliers to circumvent high costs, and India emerged as a viable option. Increased exports to the US. India saw an uptick in exports of goods like textiles, chemicals, auto components, and electrical machinery, which previously had strong demand for Chinese products. Certain sectors like pharmaceuticals, IT services, and agricultural products, such as soybeans, also benefited as China looked for alternatives to American goods. The foreign direct investment, or FDI inflows, companies looking to hedge risks against geopolitical uncertainties started expanding manufacturing in India, leading to increased FDI in sectors like electronics, automobiles, and mobile manufacturing. Apple, for example, began shifting its production from China to India, boosting employment and local manufacturing capabilities. 2. Strengthening India's Make in India initiative. The trade war pushed multinational companies to rethink their supply chain strategies. India, with its large labor force and government-driven initiatives like Make in India and the Production-Linked Incentive (PLI) scheme, became an attractive manufacturing destination. The Indian government capitalized on this by introducing policies that encouraged domestic production in electronics, defense, and renewable energy. Several global players, including Samsung, Apple, and Foxconn, expanded their operations in India, reducing reliance on China. 3. Enhanced trade relations with other nations. With China facing trade restrictions, India leveraged the opportunity to strengthen ties with the European Union, ASEAN nations, and African countries. India also pursued new trade agreements, including talks with the US to reduce import-export barriers in key sectors. 4. Competitive edge in the global market. As tariffs made Chinese goods more expensive in the US, Indian products became more competitive in terms of pricing and accessibility. This benefited industries like apparel, jewelry, IT services, and specialty chemicals. Challenges India faces due to the tariff war. Despite the apparent advantages, the trade war has posed several challenges for India as well. 1. Volatility in global markets. Trade tensions led to fluctuations in global stock markets and commodity prices, impacting investor confidence in emerging markets like India. India, which imports raw materials from China, faced disruptions in its supply chain due to rising costs and delays. 2. Uncertainty in the WTO and global trade rules. The trade war weakened global trade institutions like the World Trade Organization, WTO, leading to unpredictable trade policies. India, being a major participant in global trade, had to navigate changing rules and regulations, affecting export-driven industries. 3. Dependence on Chinese raw materials. Many Indian industries, especially in electronics, pharmaceuticals, and automobile sectors, rely on Chinese raw materials. While the trade war opened export opportunities, it also increased costs for Indian manufacturers, who had to pay higher prices for essential imports from China. 4. Pressure from the US on trade policies. The US has also pressured India to reduce its own tariffs and import duties, affecting domestic industries. The withdrawal of India's generalized system of preferences status by the US in 2019 led to higher costs for Indian exporters. Geopolitical considerations. 1. Strengthening India-US strategic relations. The trade war pushed the US and India to deepen economic and strategic partnerships. The US saw India as a counterbalance to China in the Indo-Pacific region, leading to greater defense and economic cooperation. 2. India's balancing act with China. While India gained from China's losses, it had to manage its trade relationship carefully to avoid direct confrontation. India continued to engage in selective economic cooperation with China in sectors like telecommunications and technology, despite geopolitical tensions. Long-term implications for India. 1. Boosting domestic manufacturing. The shift of supply chains away from China presents a long-term opportunity for India to become a global manufacturing hub. However, this requires improvements in infrastructure, labor laws, and ease of doing business. 2. Attracting more foreign investments. If India continues to provide a stable economic environment, it can attract more companies seeking alternatives to China. Policies like reduced corporate taxes and incentives for foreign firms will be crucial. 3. Strengthening regional trade alliances. India can use the trade war to solidify its position in regional trade pacts and diversify its export markets to reduce dependency on any single country. Conclusion. A mixed bag for India. The US-China tariff war has provided India with both opportunities and challenges. While India has gained in exports, foreign investments, and strategic partnerships, it also faces hurdles in managing trade volatility, rising input costs, and geopolitical complexities. To fully capitalize on this shifting global trade landscape, India must continue to improve its business environment, strengthen infrastructure, and foster innovation. If managed well, the trade war could serve as a catalyst for India's long-term economic growth, making it a significant player in global trade dynamics.